everybody, it's Calxiyn here, so we are going to talk today about something, but before we get started, let me just tell you guys that you guys should join our Discord server or become patrons over on Patreon. So, today we're talking about Raven. So, Raven seems to have killed Leo Spring Maiden. Let's be real.
Yeah, so I don't know how this works out.
What do you mean?
So I'm confused. So Vernal was the Spring Maiden.
No.
Or she might have never been. But then how did Leo not be like, wait a minute, you
because Leo's a coward and hasn't seen her in over a decade and probably just didn't give a shit.
Alright.
Okay, well that's the first theory. So I have a couple things to talk about, right? So here's the first one. That there was a third party, let's just call her Amber. Like, just imagine that this is Amber like, from last time. So, Amber 2 is fed up with Leo. She runs into outside of the kingdom and just stays in a bunch of villages. The bandits come, the village gets raided, she dies, and then Raven just happens to kill her, because Raven just kills people. That's just what Raven does. And so, Red Raven kills her. She is the last thing that is fought about, by the girl, and then Raven gets the powers and is like, well, fuck. That's one. Two is that Raven was aware that Leo Spring Maiden went away, and she went to intentionally kill her to try to get the powers for herself, so she could be strong and shit and protect the tribe. And so you guys may be like, but that doesn't make sense because she didn't want to get wrapped up in all of this, but like, bitch ass, that's too bad, because apparently, you know, she's also like, getting knocks on her door, asking to help regardless, because even though Crow didn't know that she was the Spring Maiden or anything, Crow was like, hey Raven, you wanna help us out, you know, or else the world's gonna end, and then Raven's just like, how about I don't give a fuck, you know what I mean?
Yes. And
so even without that, Crow was coming around asking for favors, to an extent, and so that didn't, like, get her out of it, and so I feel like that it either happened as an accident or on purpose. Like, there's not really any way around it. So I actually have I have two more. So my third one is that somebody saw, basically, someone in the Discord said this, that the Spring Maiden was basically dying on her own because she went into, like, the wilderness and the forest and just couldn't handle it because she wasn't really skilled at her powers, so she was getting attacked by Grimm and stuff. And so she saw Raven as a bird, and the bird is the last thing that she thought about, and that is how Raven got it. So Raven was not involved in killing her whatsoever, but she was last seen in bird form. And, like, Spring being the maiden of nature and all that stuff, there's kind of that connection there that seeing, like, wildlife or birds singing would make you feel comforted in your last hours of pain or whatever, and so that is what you would have thought about, and so that is why Raven got the powers. I actually really like that one because of a few things. Like, it implies that Raven didn't actually kill her, which I think is nice, and that I think that gives some personality also to the past Spring Maiden, to kind of, like, see the beauty of nature and death and all of that stuff, and that Raven just happened to sort of be part of that nature as she is a bird. I don't know. Like, I think that would be like, oh, but that's just so random, but, like, I don't know. I feel like that's a nice, alternative. Or that Raven was trying to track the Spring Maiden down for Lionheart, and in her bird form again saw the Spring Maiden, you know what I mean? Because that at least makes it less of a random chance of Raven coming by a dead girl, and instead that she was supposed to track her down for Lionheart, found her dead in her bird form, and just stayed in her bird form, and the Spring Maiden remembered that, right? So that would make it, like, less random. Do you agree, Hunter?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the last one. So this came from a YouTube comment. So I think that Raven has been the Spring Maiden since she was a teen, but has been hiding it for all these years. This is the reason she went back to being abandoned and gave up Yang. Raven knew sooner or later she would be found out and didn't want Yang getting hurt, so she gave her to Tai. The maiden that Leo was talking about is Vernal, but they were running the same scam back then. Raven stays close and does a few shows of power with Vernal taking credit, but before anyone can figure things out, Vernal takes off. It looks like she runs off and joins the bandits, but she was a bandit the whole time, helping Raven hide that she was the true maiden.
That could work. look, I guess because she's a bird, right? Can she use her magic in bird form? And like, oh, there you go. She just hangs out around.
I don't see why not.
Facility.
But she could even just be there, right? Because she was supposed to be like working with Ozpin before, and if this happened long enough ago, she would have maybe still been working with Ozpin, even though, quote unquote, working with Ozpin, even though she left Tai and everything.
But then why would she?
Because remember, the group fell apart after Raven left. And so there's some time in between, like, Raven, like, really, really leaving, like, giving her daughter and stuff, and Summer dying and all that stuff. So basically what they're saying is that Vernal sort of volunteered from the beginning to put on a show. And so she went to Lionheart and said that she had the Maiden powers, and Lionheart said, okay, well, prove it. And then, you know, they did the exact same thing before. That seems a little
needlessly convoluted, don't you think?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So here's my problem with all this. Sometimes the easiest answer is just the answer. And the easy answer is that the last Spring Maiden was killed by Raven, and she got the powers. And Vernal was just a cover-up. Like, Vernal wasn't the Maiden and then gave it to Raven. Like, people are coming up with all these weird-ass theories. But then it's also,
like, why Vernal? Like, why was she picked?
Well, maybe because she's just the best out of all the other members of the tribe.
So something that I had initially thought, I don't know how she would get it, but there appears to be ways to take the power.
The transfer?
So you do,
I don't think you can do that alive, though. That's what they were kind of saying with Amber, that Amber wouldn't be able to remain alive after they did that to her. After it happened,
but then, so that was with Amber, then also with Cinder. Do you imagine maybe something like that occurred? You're right, I mean,
that's a lot more complicated than I think we're going for. And like Raven wouldn't have access to that sort of technology.
Yeah, unless there was
she doesn't have access to the Grim arm. She doesn't have access to the aura transfer that's in the basement of the school, I'm assuming. So I think that like it's really complicated to be like, okay, so Vernal had the powers first, but then they went to the aura transfer and gave them to Raven, and now Raven has the powers, but Vernal was still pretending that she had the powers. Like that's like super confusing, and I think that that's just unnecessary.
But then it's also like, what about the origin of Vernal? Because I feel cheated if she's just a rando.
Well, she's not a rando. She would have been Raven's right-hand woman when she came back to the tribe, and I feel like that's fine.
Yeah, but
or maybe she was even running the tribe in her absence.
Then where does she come from?
What do you mean? Where does she come from? What? Like,
well, where does she come? Like, because if she were the Spring Maiden, she had the whole origin with with Lionheart and like, too much for me, I don't want to be the Avatar, I'm gonna bow out for a while. You know, but with this, it's just she's just some girl. So maybe
but she's not just some girl. She's Vernal. You know, like she's Vernal.
So all I'm saying is that it would be interesting if they had like some sort of alternative like
I understand what you mean.
So if she was like, okay, she's still related, like it's
but
the
I think
sister of the.
I think how Vernal would be related is that while Raven was gone, somebody had to look after the tribe, right? Mm-hmm. And so what I believe personally, if you really want a backstory for her, is that it could be possible that Raven's, because it is a Branwyn tribe, right? So Raven's parents, who were running the tribe, passed away, and Vernal took up the responsibility because she.
At like 12? She's not that old, right? Like.
I mean, we don't. Let's say she's in her mid-20s, and mid to late 20s, like, I don't know. But like maybe it was either her parents that took up running the tribe or her herself. Does that make sense? And it was just passed to Vernal before Raven got back. Does that make sense? Because, like, I think that she's supposed to be Raven's right-hand woman. Like, I think that's enough of an explanation for her to an extent. Because, like, you kind of have, like, the tribe hierarchy. And so imagine, like, her parents were, like, always, like, right-hand mans to Raven's parents. And then it's more of a generational thing where the Vernals will always be right hands to the Branwyns, and then you just kind of go on with your life.
Or whatever her last name is.
Well, I'm just calling them the Vernals.
The Vernal, like Mario.
You know, you understand what I mean, though?
Yeah, I don't know. I just
like, I understand that you feel like you've been copped out of a backstory.
I personally like the idea of, like, her being related to the Spring Maiden in some way regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
I mean, I think that's fine though for what we're discussing. I just think that like we don't want to make things too complicated here. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that one of these has to be the answer. Like, they could all be probable, but at the same time, on the part of the writers, I don't want them to make this super complicated. So, like, this video isn't like, which answer is it, guys? Like, find out next episode. Like, no, it's not like that. It's just we're kind of bringing up ideas that the community has had. And so in terms of that, I think that, like, I think they should try to go with an easy answer that also explains Vernal's origins. And so I feel like that is just that Vernal's family and the Branwyns were always very close, and that we talked about Raven and Vernal's relationship, and Raven has always been sort of the older one, so the older sister, or, like, almost a mother figure or an aunt figure to Vernal, and they've always sort of been, like, right hands together, you know what I mean? Or I guess Raven being the leader and her being a right hand, you know? And so, yeah. So that's kind of all I wanted to talk about, in terms of Raven killing this Spring Maiden. I understand why people don't want Raven to have killed her, because that makes Raven more irredeemable, but, like, Raven kills people all the time. Like, if you want to talk about irredeemable, like, it's too late anyway. And so and I think that accidental thing, like, that maybe, the idea that I had, like, maybe where Leo, sent Raven to track the Spring Maiden down, and then she just died along the way, and then, the Spring Maiden saw her and kind of gave her her powers. Like, I feel like that's a very nice story. You know what I mean? But realistically, she probably just killed her, so anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, remember that you guys should become a patron over on Patreon or join our Discord server. I hope you enjoyed, and we will see you later. Bye-bye!